I can't wait to run around here and just look at everything.
I know.
Oh my gosh.
I'm going to spend so much game time just staring at the walls.
Yeah.
Literally just... It's so pretty. Wow.
Hey YouTube, welcome back to our channel. My name is Yelena.
And I'm Bjorn.
And we are Viking reenactors and living historians, here to talk with you about your favorite Viking Age TV shows.
We're still really excited about Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and so we decided that we're going to spend today looking at the first gameplay trailer to actually see what the game looks like, graphics, content. We're going to dive a little bit further into that. Is the volume up?
Yes. Ooh, Stave Church. All right.
Yeah, so...
We got a Stave Church.
Yeah. Stop 3 seconds in.
Church.
Yeah.
Burn it.
So the game itself, we think, is based around like the Great Heathen Army invasion of England, which took place around 865.
Mm-hmm.
To relate that to why I stopped the video, this Stave Church or Stava Church is gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
It looks absolutely awesome. But that style of church was actually developed and kind of created in a later period than 865.
Right.
So it's more late kind of 10th century or so is when these styles of churches started to come about. And that would have been more with the Christianization of Scandinavia itself. Because it was actually a Christian church.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So you do find a lot of those in Norway nowadays, actually.
Yeah, Norway and Sweden. We actually got to see
one of them,
which was gorgeous. It really captured kind of like even the essence of the church that we saw, where you literally had to like kind of hike and take this trail into the woods, and the tree was and the church was there just surrounded in the middle of this forest, basically.
Right, exactly. I remember we were walking along the path in the woods, and I was like, "Where are we going?" And all of a sudden, you just see this church in the distance. You're like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, just like amongst the hills and like surrounded by these trees. So like that, this just kind of captures that like first moment that we saw it and kind of felt that little bit of a shock of just like, oh God, there it is. All right. And then of course backlit with the Aurora Borealis is just so classically Scandinavian.
Ooh, that's pretty.
That's really gorgeous. So yeah, so this is like interior of a longhouse with that big feasting hall. Everybody kind of gather around celebrating.
And the central fire and everything.
Yeah, that central hearth fire. I love the two guys just like chilling in the rafters. Like,
how did they get up there?
Literally, how do they even manage to get up there? Like, there is no easy way to climb up that, which is just terrific. But yeah, you can even see like the hearts there in the center are like in the ground, like they're dug into the actual like turf floor, which is awesome to see.
And it's really cool because you can see that like the fire itself is just this hot like bursting bed of coals that's been there probably the entire day, if not even more than that.
Awesome. That's like perfect.
I'm not sure about the art carvings here.
So like they definitely are trying to get the that like interwoven kind of knotwork style patterning, like if you look across the banner that they're sat on, that kind of has like a little bit of that like dragony flow that just kind of typically goes back and forth, like that typical twisted kind of knotwork style.
Yeah.
But then looking over here, like along the columns and everything like this.
That's mostly what I was talking about.
Yes.
That column.
So this graphic actually kind of reminds me of the Irminsul, which is like a Germanic tree, kind of associated with like the tree of Thor, essentially, like that sacred oak tree in Germanic and Scandinavian mythology. So with like that style here kind of reminds me of that, but it does not really look too typical of that classic kind of Viking art style.
If pressed, I can kind of pull out a little bit of the art style in there, like the interwovenness of the strands and just the way that the ends kind of like terminate, like the ends of the branches kind of terminate, is reminiscent of the Viking Age art styles, but all put together, it doesn't quite hit the mark. The different knotwork that we see that's reminiscent of the Viking Age, or just from the Viking Age in general, there is a structure to it. It's like a structured chaos.
Yeah,
almost.
That's a good way to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people will kind of confuse like Scandinavian Nordic knotwork with like Celtic knotwork a lot.
They're very similar.
They are very similar. And one of the big differences is the structure of it, where Celtic knotwork is very much like refined and put in place where it kind of like fits a grid almost. And then like the stuff that we see in Norway, Sweden, Denmark, and the Scandinavian countries is a lot more free form and kind of open and flowing, and a little bit, in my opinion, a little bit more chaotic as well. Like there seems to be a lot less rhyme and reason to the individual kind of like interloping, swirling designs, and of course, depending on the period as well, they can be all kind of different variations of complexity. Whether it's like a very kind of structured, rigid, like Bora style artwork, or whether it's more like free flowing and like ribbony, like Yelling or like Ernest in the later period.
Yeah, and the other thing that I would say about Viking Age art styles is oftentimes one of the things that you notice with it is when it has to kind of fit into shapes that aren't necessarily squares or circles or rectangles or something. It has a way of just bending around whatever it needs to be bent around, essentially.
Yeah.
So in that frame, like that being cut off here,
right,
and just kind of disappearing into the wood, that wouldn't happen. Like they would find a way to use that arch in the art form.
Yeah, like it would almost be like a natural border that they'd shape the art to, and that's kind of what I meant with that freeform style. Like it would be made specifically to fit whatever it's being placed on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I can't wait to run around here and just look at everything.
I know.
Oh my gosh.
I'm going to spend so much game time just staring at the walls. Literally just... It's so pretty. Wow. So I just want to pause this really quick. So this is not Viking at all. This is the assassin blade, like the hidden blade, which has been this feature of the game since it came out. Like the whole thing is like they have this hidden blade, and like you basically have to, like the way that it was structured early on was that a mark of being in the like an assassin in that like community, in that guild essentially, was that you actually had to like cut off your finger like here to make room for the blade, because initially it was like a thing that like came out like as a surprise, like basically from your hand.
Okay.
And then later iterations of the game like fashioned it so that it came out just like flush with the forearm, basically. I think, if I can remember. But this looks beautiful. It's definitely not Viking in its design. You can see again where it's reminiscent with just those kind of like branches that kind of spread out, and the way that it's gilded is very reminiscent of that as well. But it's definitely not based on any kind of particular art find or anything that I can think of.
I think with a piece like this that's kind of carried over from other games, you can be a little bit more forgiving.
100%.
Yeah, and you know, the design that they take on. It would have been cool if they actually did some nice Viking Age knotwork on here.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to knock it for, you know, whatever design they throw on a piece that's very reminiscent of, you know, other games.
I hope we get a close-up of the blade out. I really want it to be like a Damascus steel blade. That'd be cool. So gorgeous. Wait. Okay.
Alright, we got tattoos.
We get to talk about tattoos. If I may,
we
have no evidence that Vikings had tattoos. I think we've talked about this at length before.
We have,
probably.
but we can still, you know.
Yeah, I know, I'm just always throwing that out there. So the problem with this is that it's one of those things that it's very possible, it's probable, but there's nothing to support it. Mm-hmm. The only form of evidence that we have about Vikings having tattoos was Ibn Fadlan's description of his encounter with the Rus in the early 10th century. But one of the things that he described was that they were inked or marked with these interwoven patterns, essentially from the fingertips up to their necks. And I had to pick my words carefully because the word that he used was painted. And there's a debate about whether painted might mean tattooed. But then on the opposite hand, where he came from in the Arab world, they knew what tattoos were because they in their culture had tattoos. So if he was going to describe a tattoo, why not call it a tattoo? And there's also the issue of the people he encountered being Eastern Rus Vikings, which had more of a Eastern Slavic influence in their culture, as opposed to anything in more of the Western associated Scandinavia. And despite the vast amount of sources, of sagas, of different accounts of Vikings, there's absolutely nothing that mentions any form of tattoo on any of them. Mm-hmm. There's one sentence, and people hyper-focus on that, and are like, oh, Vikings had tattoos.
I think it's also just the fact that Vikings exude this, like, bad about them, almost. So you think of, you know, a biker or a pirate or something like that, and you automatically think tattoos.
I was going to say, like, with the popular culture coming out with the Viking show and everything, it's pretty much made them into these, like, dark age biker gang.
Yeah, so I don't know if it has to do with even Fallon's account, you know, although some people will kind of point to it and say, like, well, they might have had him because this guy kind of said so. But at the same time, I think a lot of it really comes from that, like, oh, well, he's supposed to look like a bat in tattoos.
Exactly.
And a mohawk.
Tattoos and a mohawk. Yeah, it was all started by Vikings.
I just described you.
We're doing this again? Listen, you cut it out of the last time. I'm going to say it again. I looked like this since I was 14, okay? That being said, that main chest design, that's more typical of like an earlier style from like Oseberg or Bora, where it's like those bold, striking kind of figures. It's just based around like the one central kind of animal with, you know, all the kind of branch work out. And he's got a couple others that are kind of hard to see. I don't know what the swirling one is. That might be something in regards to like representing Midgard, which I'm just basing off the colors green and blue. Yeah. And then it looks like he has a little bit of like a tribal piece, like some Viking age barbed wire here. Then he's got some shoulder pieces as well we can't see yet, but yeah. I just wanted to look at that ship. I like the painted strike on it. We do actually have evidence that those top strikes of the Viking ships would be painted.
Right.
Yeah. So that's really cool. They were painted like, I mean, different ships had different colors, but like I think associated with was like yellow, blue, red, I think black even. I'm not really sure. But definitely the red, blue, yellow. I think green too was one of them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, green was one of them too. So they would definitely like paint those top kind of strikes, which is really nice.
There's also like the typical beast head that's at the front of the ship. So that signifies that they might be on their way for a raid. Because if they were not on a raid, if they were trading or something, they would actually take the beast heads off the ships.
Yeah, because the beast head was actually used as a mystical practice to frighten the land spirits away from an oncoming territory. So they actually used it to kind of like scare off the land spirits so that they could make their journey safely. And the same with the spirits of the water as well, to kind of just like scare them all away from their path and keep their ship and their journey protected. But if they were in like a local harbor, you know, if they were within their own lands or on like some kind of like peacekeeping mission, like a trading route or something, or just visiting, you wouldn't want to disturb those land spirits because it would anger them. So they actually take the heads off before docking the ship, essentially, so as to not cause any problems.
The weird thing about it is that if the beast head is on the ship and this is winter, they would not be out on raids.
Yeah, typically raids were saved for the spring seasons, the summer months, and then they'd actually
that's when they can basically cross the waters safely.
Yeah. And actually, you see pretty much up until the Great Heathen Army, they would winter back in Scandinavia. So they'd go raiding out for the summer, and then they'd all leave and settle down for the winter and stay home where they live, and then they'd head back out once the summer came again. So, but it wasn't really until right around the Great Heathen Army where they actually decided to start making encampments and settlements and wintering in England, which was terrifying to the locals because they didn't expect that at all. They thought, you know, at least this will end eventually and we can recover. But nope, they decided to stay, and it got dicey. I think that was Lindisfarne. Maybe I'm just being hopeful. This looks so pretty.
That looks gorgeous.
It looks so pretty. I'm going to keep going.
Yep.
runestone.
I can't really see the design.
I can't see anything at all. This is where that initial scene where the lady had the antlers.
Yeah,
it's the same area. I can't see any of the details, but it's a cool runestone. Cool.
Stonehenge.
Stonehenge was a pagan site, but like from the Neolithic era.
Okay, so now we're getting to the gameplay graphics here.
Which, at this I'm a little upset about it. It looks
I bet,
kind of worse than, like, the games I've played. It's got to just be really early on. Maybe? Like, this is not getting released until, like, December.
Yeah, I mean, there's a good chance that, you know, it's going to be improved by the time it comes out. But yeah, this is, like,
I hope that's
progress.
That's not too great so far. Like, there's the textures all off. That's coming from me.
Does he have a ribbon around the horn?
I think so.
That looks cool.
That looked better. This is interesting. Always have to do those like piercing blue eyes.
Yeah, they do. Ever since Ragnar.
I know, oh my god. But I've seen a lot. I've seen some furs. I've seen weird graphics next to good graphics. I don't know what's going on with that.
Maybe some are just not really finished and fully finalized yet. I'm not sure.
Maybe not. We stopped at the do with the horn. Like they had, you know, war horns and all kinds of stuff of the nature. There were throwing axes. There were like big stone fortifications, which I'm not really sure about myself.
Those would have been from like the Roman era of occupation of England.
Yeah.
Because, you know, even to this day, some of them stand and everything. And at the time period during the Heathen Army, you would see some of them interspersed with just like settlements with like thatch roofs and stuff like that were more English.
Yeah, and
settled.
And that was way more common too, just having like the thatched roofs and like, you know, timber frame houses and things. And we also saw like a battering ram that was shaped like a ram. I didn't want to talk about it, but now I have to. No thanks.
That seemed weird.
Yeah. Oh, and I guess just another thing to go back on his eye makeup.
Eye makeup was definitely possible. We do have, you know, the accounts of warriors wearing the black, you know, it's like smudging black around their eyes before putting on their helmets, so that when you look at the eye holes in the helmet, you don't see anything except for just like a, you know, the eyes staring back at you.
Yeah, it's supposed to make them look all like sunken and like terrifying.
Yeah, exactly. So we do have accounts of that, so it's not really out of the realm of possibilities.
Yeah, in terms of like refined makeup, probably not, but something like this where he just kind of has it on for war to like blacken his eyes and look all intimidating and stuff. Right. Definitely would have been a thing for sure. I was hoping for a little bit more with this, to be completely honest.
I was too, a little bit. Like, especially after the first trailer, digging into some more details is, like, a little bit of a step back, I feel like. Like I even said back in the first video, you can't expect the in-game graphics to look exactly like the first trailer looked, because that was a very cinematic trailer.
Yeah.
And that makes sense. It looks awesome, to be honest, and I'm sure that by the time the game comes out, the graphics are going to settle somewhere in between the two versions that we saw.
Yeah.
But it's the little things that they're not taking into account, like the art styles and the tattoos and, you know, some of the weaponry. Well, the good thing is that in the cinematic trailer that we saw, the shots of like the Viking villages and stuff like that, like, did look like people were wearing good clothing.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
It was very, you know, passable. So there is the chance that we'll see some of that as well.
Yeah, time will tell.
We just gotta wait at this point.
I'm still gonna hold out. They still have a lot of good collaboration in terms of who they talk to and who they're working with.
They just announced Einar Selvik.
I know, they just announced Einar Selvik's doing a lot of the score with like the original composer and a couple other people, and that's really exciting. because Einar Selvik just makes amazing music, and with the original creator for the music from the first few games was just astonishing. So that's going to be great to have that revitalization. I'm still holding high hopes for the content. The contents has to be good.
For the actual storyline.
Yeah, for the actual storyline and like the things you interact with.
Thank you guys so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you can be notified of our future videos. And we will see you in the next one.